All right, everybody. Welcome to the 397th edition of the Holderly Backport podcast. I am Dustin here in Rip City, and I got my man.
Sage here, rainy, Beaverton, Oregon. Still really excited about the Siege X reveal stuff today. So very looking forward to be playing that, learning how the new mechanics of the games work. It'll be released in June 10th, but we're not here for me talking about my love for Rainbow Six Siege. We're here to talk about Dylan Harper. So Dustin, tell us about him.
Yeah, Dylan Harper, arguably the consensus number two player across every single big board that is out there living on the internet. A 6'6" combo guard probably projects as a primary ball handler at the point guard at the NBA level. Weighs 220 pounds from Rutgers University. He's from the area. His older brother, Ron Harper Jr., played at Rutgers. He is the son of Ron Harper Sr. You may know him from his stint with the Cavaliers or the second three-peat with the Bulls, and he also played with the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. Rutgers season came to an end last night in a double overtime loss in the first round of the Big Ten tournament at the hands of the USC Trojans. So for the season, the season is complete for Dylan. His numbers on a whole, he played in 29 games, just over 32 minutes a night, averaged 19 and a half, shot almost 14 times a game, 48% from the field, took five threes, converted just 33% of the time from downtown, got to the line almost six times a game, converted 75% of those attempts. You're looking at four and a half boards, four assists to two and a half turnovers, and two combined stocks, which is blocks and steals combined. He had a player efficiency rating of 24.6, and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights were 15 and 17 on the year, despite having two of the most dynamic freshmen in Harper and fellow Frosh Ace Bailey. So a bit of a disappointing season for Rutgers. Sage, do you want to start talking about him on the offensive side of
Oh
the
yeah,
ball?
I think offense is where you just see a absolute stud. I mean, I hated watching Rutgers basketball because they were so bad outside of the two superstars that they had. Like, it's amazing that he got four assists a game with how bad his teammates are at finishing potential buckets for him. I was looking at the games and I'm like, dang, that should be an assist. That should be an assist. That should be an assist. But for whatever reason, his teammates couldn't score on some very, very, very easy passes. So I feel like if we were talking about Dylan Harper, the one and done freshman from Baylor or Duke or a much better school, we're talking about him and we're saying, dang, 20 points, 10 assists, Dylan Harper's fantastic. Um, I think what stands out to me, number one, is his ability to get to the basket and drive. Like if you watch him, he does something new every time, every game. He shows something new to his bag. It isn't just here's everything. He works with change of speeds. He works in the pick and roll. He can get there himself. He can set somebody up. But it all is predicated on his ability to drive to the basket. Like a lot of people are going to comp him to Cade Cunningham and body type and some play type is very similar, but I think that Dylan Harper's skill and want and desire to get 2 feet into the paint and make something happen for himself or a teammate just sets him above what a Cade Cunningham did at Oklahoma State or what he's doing in the first few years in Detroit. He is getting to Dylan Harper is getting to the rim, putting that pressure on the defense, and he's showing stuff. Like when I first watched him, I was like, okay, he's just bully balling his way. But then you're seeing him drive straight line to the basket. First step goes around defenders and scores. Everything is just about him and his desire to get to that basket and put 2 feet in the ground. And he's such a fantastic scorer. Not a good, he doesn't dunk. He's taken like, I believe, 10 dunks, but he's 10 for 10 from the year. He really is doing his work underneath the basket, but the way he gets there is just so impressive. And that we've seen this body type before, tall guard, that stuff works. And the fact that he can get to the lane against anybody, I'm really impressed with what he can do offensive. And I mean, Rutgers puts him in a pretty god-awful situation where his shot diet was a lot of moving and bad shots. And like it obviously wasn't efficient, but it was like who is going to be efficient on nothing but bad shots? So like I can see him being a secondary guy. I can see him being the number one, but it's just Rutgers put him in a bad light. So what did you think about that offense?
Yeah, let's start with his score first mentality. Then we'll talk about the playmaking. I think he uses his height to his advantage. 6'6". I was surprised to find out that Cade Cunningham was 6'8". Like I just saw Cade play the Blazers, and Harper looks every bit of just they almost look the exact same.
Mhm.
They're both 220 coming out of college. I was surprised that there's the 2 inch difference. Maybe it's the afro that Dylan has that kind of gives him the illusion that he is taller than he is, but he
Mhm.
he looks absolutely massive on the collegiate court. He definitely, I think, is a score first guard, which I think is fine for the modern era. He's really strong and really nimble around the rim. He kind of just like glides sometimes when he's just making these off-ball cuts, and
Mhm.
he's able to finish. Um, I think the swing skill for me when it comes to Harper is movement shooting and being able to be a threat off of the catch and shoot. If you watch his shot, he definitely takes a bit of a wind up. There's a dip that he has to get like to gather momentum. It's okay at the collegiate level, but when you're going up against OG Anunoby, Tumani
Harper, yeah,
Kamara,
yeah.
Alex Caruso, they are going to be on him, and he's going to need those extra split seconds of time and space. So he's definitely going to have to, I think, adjust his shot for the NBA level to almost, if he could get to where Jeremy Grant is on that no dip, that's where he's going to want to be because he's going to get his shot off because he's not the fastest. He doesn't have the most dynamic first step. He doesn't generate a whole lot of space. What he does have is he has a size advantage, so he can kind of fade a little bit to get to his spots. But the first thing I noticed was the shot is fine. I don't think he's ever going to be, Steph Curry or Dame, but I think he can get to a point where we're looking at Scoot Henderson leading the Blazers in three-point percentage. Scoot did
Mm.
not have a great shot coming out of the G League. He worked on it. It had to be tweaked, and he did that. It's compact, it's quick, and it's reliable. I think that's what Dylan should strive to become because I don't think he's ever going to be known as a guy where we need a furious comeback. You need to start launching from deep. When I was watching that game last night against USC, there was the second overtime and they got down by like 6 or 8 points. And it's like Dylan's not the guy that's going to just drive, pull up, and hit these crazy threes to kind of get them back in the game. He's more of a methodical
Yeah.
half court player who can get to the bucket and hit the three in the right situation, but he's not one of those just kind of Anthony Edwards flash in the pan. We all saw the Tracy McGrady like 14 points in 30 seconds. And that's not his
Mm.
style, or I don't think that's in his repertoire. That's fine. But I think a lot of that is because of it takes him a little bit time to gather that shot. I think he just needs to tweak it a little bit, but I think overall, he's going to be able to do a little what I think Shaden Sharp does. When you watch Shaden, he doesn't have the tightest handle, but and I'm not saying Cade had, or I'm not saying Dylan has Shaden's athleticism, but they both really live in the mid range quite a bit, and they can make a killing in the mid range where he uses a little jab and he has so much length at 6'6" that not many guard defenders are going to be able to stick with him. So if he can just utilize a little fadeaway, get that separation while he works on his craftiness, he's going to find ways to score. I'm not worried about him scoring at the next level at all.
No, no, I'm not either. And I mean, so these stats are probably a week old because this was delayed a week, but he in the catch and shoot, I think he's like an 85th percentile shooter off of catch and shoot. And that's great, but you know what? Rutgers didn't allow him to do show off that skill because it was just Dylan, please save us. and he was taking, bad mid ranges, and he was hitting, but it wasn't like as efficient as like an 85th percentile 3-point shooter off the catch and shoot. And I okay, I know there's going to be a lot of comparisons to players. I think Dylan Harper is a pretty good passer. He's not like Scoot Henderson with his passing, but I was never when watching him, I was never like bad pass, bad thought process on his passing. It was just like that was smart. That was smart. The pass was there. He made it. He got the ball to the person in the right timing and spacing with the butt laces, to him. Like everything was good. It was just that, man, Rutgers just sucked. So even good quality passes that would have led to assists just didn't. So like his assist numbers are quite good, but it should have been like, like Trey Young levels of assist numbers. It's just that he was put on a bad team. Well, he wasn't put on it. He decided to go to a bad team, and like he had to do so much more than if he was on a good team. So, I mean, props to him for staying jurors, but like the teammates didn't help him. But I feel very good with him being my primary. Or if he went to the Blazers, for instance, I think he and Scoot could work because of how big and strong Dylan is and how big and strong. I mean, I think Dylan can guard threes and play three, but I really do see the ability to be a secondary creator or a secondary guy, not just like I don't think Scoot in theory could play as a secondary guy. I think Dylan would fit in really well with what the Blazers are doing in their guards if we got so lucky to get the second pick.
Yeah, I think that'd be a bit of a tough fit personally because I think we really need to give Scoot as many primary
Yeah,
ball
I
handling
feel that.
opportunities. And then Shaden has to come down the pecking order. And obviously you have Denny as well. And I think for Dylan, I think he needs to go to a spot where they can say, Cook, like this is your role. So I don't love the fit. Obviously, if you get the second pick and if you can't move it for something better, you take it and you best player wins out, right? I don't think it's an ideal scenario. I would argue his assist numbers are a little underwhelming. 4 assists per game, only had double-digit assists once this season, and only recorded 9 or more assists 3 times. Again, it is the
That team.
college system. It is Rutgers. However, in the full games that I've watched, I would say, and he played 2 fantastic games. And he had one clunker against the Ducks. He had a fantastic game against the Huskies up in Seattle, and then he had, a superb game last night 27, 8, and 8 against the Trojans. What I would say, one of the most incredible natural advantages that he has massive hands. I text you. The ball looks so small that he could put it on a string. And when you're able to do that, you can do these just passes off of the bounce with either hand. And he had a couple of those to his bigs. Like I just would have liked to have seen him trust his guys a little bit more, especially in that Washington game. He kind of got a little bit hero mode, and that's to be expected for a young prospect. I also mentioned to you, like, I didn't recall seeing many highlights between he and Ace Bailey. Like,
Yeah,
there was not much chemistry, or, they were in harmony or in sync, however you want to describe it. Those two just did not get on the same page this year at Rutgers. It could be a product of them both really needing the ball, could be a product of Ace having really poor and tough shot selection, and it could be a product of Dylan just being a score first guard. They
and
only
Dylan
played.
Harper got seriously ill.
He
Like,
did.
yeah, like he lost 15 pounds and was out for a while, and it was obvious that he wasn't back when he was back because he was like, I think, yeah, I think he was so sick he lost 15 and was like not himself for a little bit. So yeah, it I think it was a lot of your turn, my turn situations for Dylan and Ace, and maybe it's the system wasn't also good for both of them to do their highlighted skills. So yeah, like when you're talking about two blue chip talents like Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, you're expecting them to be better, but
Because it's working at Duke has 3 blue chip talents and it's working at Duke. So whether that's their skill set, I know Cooper is more of a facilitator. I know Malawach is more of a play finisher, so you're going to get those highlight lobs. Maybe it's just John Shire is a better coach. Maybe they have just better overall talent at Duke, but because it can work. We've seen it work in the past with the Fab Five, so it's
Mhm.
not just like two highly touted freshmen just aren't always going to play well together. I think this just was not the proper um, situation.
I mean, and it's like Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, you, me, and Terrebonne Biggs as the three teammates isn't gonna generate that many games in the Big East, or no, not the Big Ten. Sorry, it's too many big conferences in the NCAA.
I do
But
think there is a lot to like, and there's a lot that a good coach could take advantage of his height. I think that is his superpower is his height. There's something you can't teach, right? 6'6" at the lead guard with those big hands. Like I can envision him hunting small guards off of
Mhm.
either switch or just isolation, backing him down
Could you imagine what
and
you do to Anthony?
just utilize either a little jump hook or a turnaround fade, or because he has those hands, he can just, if a double comes, you can just dump it over the top. We're used to seeing big men do that, especially in the 90s and in early 2000s, but there's no reason a smart coach can't utilize that. I also think,
Look what Luca did.
I don't know if he's going to be able to become as shifty as a Jalen Brunson, but I do think there is the ability to learn the deceleration
Oh,
that
I
a
think he
Luka
does.
learns.
I think that he lives off of that because
So I think
he doesn't start so
if he
fast.
improves that, he'll be even more dangerous in the paint. And I also just think, like Cade, he is the type of player that you have to build around. You
Mhm.
can't put non-shooters around him because he wants to live in the paint. You can't have that paint clutter. You need to have shooters around him. We saw that Cade Cunningham went from, I wouldn't call him a bust, but I would call him a bit of a disappointment for the first 3 years of his career. They went out, they got Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik
Malik,
Beasley,
yeah.
and they spaced the floor. What do you know? It opened it up. He's able to operate, he's able to get into the paint, and he became an all-star. And the Pistons are one of the biggest success stories of the season.
Mhm.
So that's not necessarily a knock on Cade that he has to play that way. That's just every player has a certain, like there's very few, I would say there's maybe one or two LeBrons ever to ever play the game where he can work with any system, right? Every other player needs a specific archetype around them for them to reach their maximum potential.
Are you
And I think
saying
that's
having Jalen Duren and Beef Mo, or no, Beef Stew is bad, Monty Williams? Like
wasn't
the
great.
lack of shooting, the lack of spacing for a guy that drives to the paint 14 times a game might be a bad look. Mm.
Defensively, not the best, I would say
Oh, well,
for Dylan Harper. I
I
think he
would argue
floats
that
quite
when
I
he's
think he
locked
floats
in,
quite
he's
a bit.
fine. He's great.
I think he floats quite a bit. I think he's going off ball. I think he's going to have to put in a lot of work. On ball, when he gets locked in, I think it's passable. Off ball,
Wow.
there's a lot of shade and sharp in his game. He just kind of loses his man. Um, and he seemed incredibly tired. I don't know if he's still feeling the
The sick.
ramifications from being sick, but like we're talking about like second half just started and he's just like he's huffing and puffing down the court. Like they put him on non-shooters in the corner, which is fine because he's playing 40 minutes. He's the primary ball handler. But there's times where he came and got a weak side block, but there are other times where he's just like not diving on the floor for the loose balls. He's not in the defensive stance. He's got his hands down, like just fundamentals that can be changed. But I don't think I would say defense is a plus for him right now. I think he needs to improve on that end of the
But
floor.
I think that he's also carrying the weight of the entire offense. And then he probably isn't feeling 100%. Like earlier in the year, I was like, him locked in is like good. He's a good defender when he's locked in and he gets steals, he gets blocks. He might not make the second, third effort that you'd like defensively, but at the same time, he's carrying the weight of an entire offense and, the hopes and dreams of New Jersey on his back when he's trying to play. So I told you that, like, when I watched the OTE and I was watching the Thompson twins, they weren't always locked in, but when they were, they made they clamped up and changed the league forever. I don't think Dylan Harper has the God-given athleticism that both of those dudes have, but when I have seen him locked in certain games against like uh, Kasparis, I see him make that second effort or the third effort to block the shot and make the defensive play. So I think if you take down the usage rate and the minutes played, I think that you will be seeing a very good defender on ball. And then I think that he's just so smart that he can do stuff off ball. But again,
Off-ball defense is hard. I think people think it's hard. It's hard to play off-ball defense. It's hard to know man and ball. It's hard to know rotations. It's incredibly difficult. That's why there's, I think, so few really good roamers in the league that are able to make split-second decisions on where they need to be, and even the great ones are telling others where they need to be. And I think that will come in time. But
and he probably
I
has
would
one of the
also
best
argue that
references for
he
defense
also
ever.
he's going to be he's going to go to a really bad team. So
Mhm.
he's probably going to be the first or second option. He is going to have the full load on his plate. Maybe not as much at Rutgers, but he's going to be getting 35 minutes a night probably. Let's say he goes to the Wizards, right? He's going to be option one. So he is going to have to increase his cardio, increase his endurance, because you are going from what 27, 30 games to now 82. So there is going to be, I think, an expectation to raise the defensive floor. And I think as long as the effort is there, no qualms for the first couple years. Like no one's expecting him to be, an all league defense. I think if he can just get to where it's you're not getting hunted. Like that's I think that's the goal for some of these young guards. Is just you don't want to be someone who's gonna like score 25, but you give up 25, right?
Yeah, I have no worries about him defensively. Like, when he's gonna take that next step up, he's gonna lock in even more. Like I think he knew that Rutgers wasn't gonna be the end all be all best team makeup. So yeah, I really don't have that much issue with him. His father is one of the best defenders ever, so he has a resource that nobody else has. He's able to use his size, use his ability. Like I think I've when I watch him on ball, off ball, I'm like, okay, this is just a smart dude that has way too much responsibility for to be a two-way defender or a two-way player because he's everything to that team. So for me, if the Blazers get him, I have no issue with him defensively. And then I think he would make, the team around him with the Tumani and Denny that much better with the size that he can provide for the team.
Yeah, that game you referenced against Illinois was arguably his best of the year. 28 points, got to the line 12 times, 6 boards, 5 assists, 4 steals, and a block in a just massive win over the Fighting Illini. What was really impressive to see was he came to Oregon. He and Ace were both complete non-factors. The Ducks blew them out of the gym. He shot 5 of 14 in that Oregon game, and then just a couple of days later went up to Seattle and they beat the Huskies. He 50% from the field, 50% from three, 34 points, 5 and 3 with 2 steals. I believe that was an overtime victory. He had a couple of just major, major shots. So I also think he's someone you can rely on
Oh yeah,
in
for sure.
the clutch as well. What do you think is his swing skill that's going to take him from, okay, this guy's a good player to like this is a franchise cornerstone? What does he need to hit on? If you could pick one swing skill.
Obviously his shooting, but I
What type of shooting? Because I think in this NBA, there's catch and shoot, there's movement shooting, there's off the dribble. Like what shooting how?
I think I believe in the catch and shoot ability. I think if he can I think his process is too fast on pull-up jumpers. S Not the shot, but like the things that you do before the shot. It was too fast. Maybe it's because people don't respect his teammates, but it seemed like when he was doing his pull-up jumper from three, he was going like too fast in the process of setting up his jumper. So I think obviously the pull-up jumper is going to be the thing that separates the great point guards from the good ones. So I think a pull-up jumper and just slowing down the process of getting ready to shoot because when he was rushing, I knew it was going to brick, and then when he, took that extra half second, it was gonna green. So it's that the process of the mid of the pull up jumper, and then the middies okay, but I'm fine with that if he can hit threes on some catch and shoot stuff.
Yeah, I think for me it's like how does he operate shooting out of the pick and roll? Because so much of the NBA is pick and
Oh,
roll, and you want to make sure they're fighting over the top instead of always going underneath,
mm.
and that requires him to kind of get a little bit tighter shot, get a little bit quicker release, and do it from a further distance. Obviously the college line is much shorter. Um, I think with a player like Harper, he's going to be good. He's the number two prospect for a reason. Like, don't overthink it. Regardless of what we've seen on tape or discussed, he's the easily the number two prospect. And if
Do you
if
think there's
Cooper,
a tier away from him and Coop?
oh, big tier, big tier.
Really?
Yeah,
I think they're
I
the
was
same
I was
tier.
thinking this the other day. Since 2000, so 25 years ago, I think Cooper Flag is probably a top 10 prospect that I remember, like just people being hyped about what he's putting on at Duke, what he's doing, what he did in the U17, going up against the basically the national team. I think Cooper is up there. I think I've had him like between 6 through 9. Like I think he's that good of a prospect. I think Dylan. I think like players like D Rose and John Wall, I think were better prospects, respectively. I think Scoot was a better
I think
prospect.
Scoot's a better prospect for sure.
So in that area, I think I think he's in his own tier. Like I think it's almost like the 2023 class. Wemby had his own tier. I think Scoot had his own tier for that class. Um, and obviously, I think we were all a little wrong. I think Amen Thompson should have been elevated into that tier because of how well he's performed and just the athleticism. But I would say as prospects, I think Dylan is in his own tier. I do like him better than Cade Cunningham as a prospect.
And
Um,
I think in a
so
normal year, he's the
I think
first
he's
overall
better
pick.
than Cade, but I don't think he was as for me as good of a prospect as a point guard like Rose or Wall coming out of Memphis and Kentucky
That
respectively. So I
that's
think
some pretty good company though.
yeah, so like I said, I think he's really good. I think he probably maxes out as like a 3 to 4 time All-Star. Like I don't know if he's going to be a perennial all-star, but I think he has multiple all-star games in his future. I think it's going to be dependent on
Team is.
the players around him, much like Cade. Like I know you didn't want to compare. I think there's so much Cade in his
Oh
game.
no, no, no. I think that's a fine. I think that's a very good. I mean, size, speed, feel, athleticism. The only difference is I think Dylan Harper drives more. Like that's the only like I
Mhm.
think Dylan's mental is more aggressive than Cade's.
Yeah.
Like so that's a fine that's a great comp. Like it's just it's so simple. I think that the mental of Dylan is better than Cade. But the comp like that's the perfect comp.
Yeah. And now if I think the handle was also probably be a swing skill. Like if he could get a crossover like a Darren Williams, because Darren was bulky too, a little bit shorter than Cade, but Darren was a tank. Um, or just figure out the footwork a little bit, like a CJ, like a Brunson, and he has what they don't. He has about 3 or 4 inches on both of those
And
players.
that is like he doesn't have to be perfect because he's 6'6", not 6'2". Like Scoot has to legitimately be perfect in
Yeah.
order to be the prime version of Scoot. He has to be perfect because he's 6'2" or whatever he actually is. Dylan's 6'6", so he has the ability to make
It
up.
gives him a margin for error.
But I also think his handle is great. I just don't think that he did everything to show us what he had. I think there's plenty of stuff in his bag. He just dominated off a change of speed and size, which I think he'll be able to do in the next level against most players except those, Tumani's, Herb Joneses, and stuff like that. But I think he'll be able to just win off of, size and the change of speed.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how he develops as a floor general because it's
Mm,
very hard to win when your best scorer is your point guard. Like that's just in NBA history, just it doesn't happen very frequently. So I'm interested to see how he grows as a playmaker. I think getting him another 25 point per game score, however that develops,
mm,
is going to unlock him that much more when you
mm,
think of um a shoot first guard. I think getting him another like either a 3 or 4 that can put up 25, that's going to just really help him out. That two-man game is going to be absolutely dynamic.
mm. Yeah, I think yeah, I think he's just really, really good. Um, who are you
What
thinking?
is before we wrap it up? What team or teams are the best fit for him?
Now I gotta look. Who are the bottom three?
Just any team in the lottery. You can pick any team in the lottery. As we saw
Ooh,
last year, Atlanta won it with the 10th worst odds,
yeah.
10th best odds. That's always hard to.
Man, I just looked at Tankathon and I was like, San Antonio. That'd be insane.
I think that'd be a bad fit because they already have
Yeah.
Castle and they just traded for Fox. Like I don't think they would.
I think New Orleans would be pretty awesome. Um, Charlotte doesn't need him. Utah would be pretty awesome. I think that I mean, once he's on a team, they just need to construct around him. But I would like to see what he and Trey Murphy could do together at New Orleans. I think that would be pretty nasty. And then him and CJ could, if CJ wants to run the one and he'll play the two. I think that replacing DeJounte, who was one of the worst players in the NBA, with Dylan Harper would be pretty awesome for the Pelicans.
I think he'd be awesome in Washington with that young core that they're building with Bilal and they've got Alex Sarr, and now they would finally have their floor general that they've been missing since prime John Wall.
Yeah.
I like what they're building in Washington. They're kind of doing it the right way with a mix of vets and young players, and they're organically being bad, and I think that's okay. They're not losing on purpose, and I think that's something that they can build around. And they're going to probably be bad for the next year or two. So there's an opportunity to add that other wing player for Harper. And I also think he would be really fun in Brooklyn under Jordy Fernandez. They've got, Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, Daron Sharp. They've got players around him who can play finish, who can spread the floor. He could go in there and be unequivocally the man from day one, playing a nice market. I think those two landing spots would be good. I also think if Charlotte got him, they should move off LaMelo Ball immediately. I would start
Could you
fresh.
imagine Dylan and that team?
Dylan, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams. Yeah, that's a nice. Yeah, and whatever you get for LaMelo,
Yeah.
like
That's
I
a
think
lot of picks.
he's a much better prospect than LaMelo Ball, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I really think as long as he finds a team, like they just have to construct around him. So having assets like what Charlotte has with Brandon Miller, like that could be a really awesome 1-2 punch for many, 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 many years.
All right, I think that about wraps this Future Friday up, Sage.
All right. We are available everywhere where you get your podcast. And thank you so much for listening. Dylan Harper is a fantastic prospect. And uh, watch some of the cut up clips if you're interested in him. Do not watch full games because Rutgers basketball makes people sad. All right. Thank you so much. Have anybody that you want to talk about next week? Fleming, potentially. Sorber, who is done for the year.